Josefo reminded us that what really makes life important is the people and the relationships that we have with them. This is a very interesting meeting because
and the food.
No, food does too, but people is the reason to live. This meeting is interesting because it's a lot of first timers. I am for the first time I'm the Toastmaster. It's his first icebreaker, and we have another first time. But this is an experienced speaker that is going to give us his first speech from the storytelling advanced manual, and he's going to introduce us to the epic failures of businesses. And the title of his speech is "Too Big to Fail." Please welcome our VP, Jerry Ratigan.
Do not support a naked politician. Fellow Toastmasters guests, I take you back to a time long ago, to a far and distant land. There was an emperor who was loved by all his people, but there was one thing that set him apart, and it was his exquisite taste for clothing. Now he filled his palaces with tons of suits, robes, everything that you can think of that was designer labeled. He had the Gucci, the Prada, the Michael Kors. One day, as a Golden Jubilee celebration approached, he met two swindlers, Obama and Romney. Now these swindlers had the tailor shop that they just opened in the center of town, and they wanted to make a custom suit for his Golden Jubilee celebration. And of course, being the fashion aficionado that he was, he gave them a chance to sell them their idea. Now they were going to make an immaculate procession robe made out of the finest materials, but they had something up their sleeve. And it was a brand new material that had a unique property. It was invisible to anyone who wasn't a competent communicator or competent leader. So he just had to have it. This was something amazing. He knew it was something that would make sure that the crowd would pay top dollar for, that it would be a sellout event. So he signed the deal, signed the invoice, they went to work. So a few days before the procession started, he got a phone call to come take a look and pick up his wardrobe. Well, there was risk that he himself was not a competent communicator or competent leader. So he was scared. He didn't want to let his people know that he wasn't a credible leader. So what did he do? Well, he sought out his two trusted advisors, his VP of membership and his VP of PR, and he asked them to go down to inspect the clothing for themselves. So that day, Biden and Palin went down to the center of square. And they themselves had that same issue. They didn't want to be looked at as being an incompetent leader or an incompetent communicator. So then when they reported back to the ruler, they told him it was the most immaculate designer wardrobe they had ever laid their eyes upon. That during the ceremony, the people in the crowd would be overjoyed at the level of detail and custom design that went into putting the attire together. So, as the procession started, the crowd went wild. They were screaming. It was amazing. Great wardrobe. People in the crowd were talking to each other. I can't imagine how awesome this is. They had heard days ago about these new designers and this new material never seen before in the world. And they themselves didn't want to be considered incompetent communicators and incompetent leaders. So of course, what they saw was different from what they wanted to see. So as the procession finished, it happened. "He's not wearing any clothes," could be heard from the voice of a small child. "He's not wearing any clothes," was heard again, but this time louder. "He's not wearing any clothes," was whispered from person to person until the whole crowd was pointing at the emperor. "He's not wearing any clothes." Well, of course, by this time the emperor knew he was not wearing any clothes, but he did not care. He kept his head up high and he finished the procession. Now this story is a folk tale from Hans Christian Andersen. And this is something that I learned about and could be applied even today. And there's situations that have presented itself over the recent years that have morals that we can learn from this story. Don't support a naked politician. How many of you here today have heard of WMDs? How about weapons of mass destruction, to be more specific? Well, interestingly, the U.S. government, with the help of George Bush years ago, came in front of the American people and sold the Iraq war strictly on WMDs, and that Saddam Hussein was stockpiling a high volume of these resources, and that it was a grave threat, not only to his people, but to you and me and people throughout the entire world, and it had to be addressed immediately. So we went to war, we spent billions of dollars, lots of casualties. Interestingly, the past month, I saw an interview of General Colin Powell. At the time, right before the Iraq War, he was the head of the Department of Defense for the U.S. government. And he was asked the question about these WMDs and what was the basis of the information the U.S. had to support this claim. As we later found out, there was no WMDs to be found. And he had said there was a double agent that they had and gave them what they thought was credible evidence. But no one substantiated it. No one double-checked what this one person claimed that the Iraqi government had and what Saddam Hussein was doing. So I go back to the folklore, to the naked emperor and how the crowd was cheering. And I ask you not to make that same mistake. I ask you, we're coming upon re-election season politics. We've had special events here in this very room. Many claims were made. And I just ask you to take upon yourself to be an educated citizen. And don't take everything you hear on the news and the internet, or what they tell you as complete fact without substantiating it for yourself, unless you'll find yourself in a chortle and supporting a naked politician. Thank you.